because we used to call them we kept calling them three beings. And then one day we had this whole conversation about carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. And they said, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen are the building blocks for all beings, all planets, all plants, stones, fossils. They would always say that to us. They'd always say it with humans being at the end. They'd say plants, fossils, dinosaurs, animals, humans, other beings, planets. They are all one energy.
They arrived in Annette Wiliamson's life on October 18th, 2017. Annette had the opportunity to speak with extraterrestrials many times, and what she found is something unexpected. Tonight, Annette gives her experience and we find out the intentions of ET, what they want from us, and what humans need to expect from each other. That and more, coming right up on My Alien Life. My Alien Life is recorded live from atop the Northern Rocky Mountains and is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and everywhere fine podcasts are found. My website is at www.myalienlifepodcast.com. There you will find my email address, all previously recorded shows, and more. I am Cameron Brower. This is My Alien Life, and the podcast starts right now.
My Alien Life Podcast.
Three, two, one, zero, and liftoff.
My guest tonight is a mom from London, England, and she fell into her alien life without warning and without really knowing what she was getting into. It's great to have an experiencer like Annette Wiliamson with me tonight. Annette, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for showing interest in my experience.
Yeah, you're certainly welcome, Annette. Is it true until a couple of years ago you really didn't know much about aliens or interdimensional beings?
I never heard those last two words at all, but I'd watched a few bits on television, but no, not really.
So tonight I'd like you to tell us about the event in your life that kind of made you realize that humans may not be alone in the universe, and let's talk about that.
It started 2 years ago, out of nowhere. There was no start at all. It 2 years ago, on the 18th of October 2017. For me, I just woke up a normal morning, and I was on Facebook, and I was just flipping through Facebook, having a cup of tea, and I saw a friend of mine had put up a picture of what I can only describe as a little alien, because it had a very big head, a small body, and it was a sketch. And at the top, she'd put a heading saying, "Humans, are you ready?" Now, I know my friend, and my friend's name is Zoe. I know her well, and I have never had a conversation with her about aliens at all. It's just not a conversation that we'd have. We're both dyslexic. I'd met her about 7 years prior to that, and she was, just not a conversation that we would have. And so anyway, as soon as I read it and saw the picture, I phoned her immediately. And I said, "What's going on? What's all this? I've just seen your Facebook page." And she said, "Oh, yes." And she went, "My alien family appeared this weekend, and they've been talking to me." And I was like, I can't remember my words, but I remember I was in shock. But I was like, "Oh, wow, it's so interesting. I need to hear more. Can I come around later on?" And she said, yes. So I remember going around. It was about 6. I know it was in October, so it was quite dark. So I went round, and her family was there. She's got a husband. She lives in a townhouse, and they were all upstairs. And we were sitting downstairs in the living room and just having a cup of tea. And she was saying to me what had happened. And she said that on the Saturday night, she'd gone downstairs to get a cup of tea. And while she was in her hallway, she said that she felt a presence behind her. And she looked, it made her turn around, but she said she couldn't see anything. So she carried on downstairs to the bottom floor and had made a cup of tea. And then she said she felt the same presence. And she said she turned around, and standing just in the hallway were 3 small beings. And she said she was so scared she couldn't move. And she said they spoke to her in mind. And they said, calm down, we're not here to hurt you. Go and draw us. Because she's a bit of an artist, so she does have bits and bobs laying around all her front room. So she said she sat down and she was sketching them. And she said as she was sketching them, she felt a feeling of relaxing coming over her. And they started to talk to her. And she said and she started to tell me, I can't remember offhand exactly what she was saying, but as she was telling me, she froze. And I remember I was looking at her and she just literally, her whole body just froze. And she said, they're here. And I looked around and I thought, I can't see anything. And I can't remember. I mean, it was a really weird feeling that came over me because I knew she wasn't making it up. I couldn't see anything. And I was interested in what she was telling me. So when she said they're here, I said, okay. And then she literally did not move her whole body. She only moved her eyes and she sort of gestured to the hallway door. And she said, they're standing in the hallway. And I went, okay. I was just going, okay. And then she said, they want to come in and they're coming in. I remember her saying, they're coming in, they're coming closer. And I went, right. And she said, they want to speak to you. And what happened there after that is that we had a 3-way conversation. So they would speak to Zoe. I didn't see them, but I felt a presence. I can't explain what I felt at that was the first hour-long meeting that we had. And I remember the first thing they said to me was, haven't you had enough yet? And I wasn't sure what they meant by that. And I remember looking at Zoe thinking, I mean, we were just sitting there looking at each other, both in shock, and she was just repeating constantly what was being said. And I didn't understand what they meant by that. And then they said to us, what does you humans, they never used to say you humans, they spoke through Zoe. So Zoe was picking up, channeling what they were saying, and she would say it as it was. And they'd say, well, the first sentence after that was, what does you humans think happens when you pick a flower? And Zoe and I just sort of turned to each other. I remember thinking, well, it dies, or compost or whatever. And I said, it dies? And they said, no, nothing dies. Energy can't die. It can only change form. And then they said, they started speaking about dimensions, and they said that, there's multiple dimensions, and they said that each energy, when it decides to come in form to Earth, they said, you have different contracts. And because I remember them saying to Zoe, and she was repeating this, they said, Zoe does this and Zoe does that and Zoe does whatever, and you do this and you do that and you do whatever, and they're completely different, and you've chosen that contract, you've chosen to experience this is, they said the word illusion. I remember them saying that because I came back and wrote it down, this illusion in that way. And they said, and that the first conversation went for about an hour long. I remember them saying, we asked them why they'd showed up, and I said, why have you come? Why have you shown now? And they said they'd been with humans forever, and they've been around for billions of years, and it's all cycles, and this is how when humans forget, this is how they make us remember again. They said they've been doing it this way for billions and billions of years. They've come in many forms to many humans. And in this contract, this is how Zoe and I had chosen to see them. So the first hour-long conversation put me into complete and utter shock. And I can remember driving home. I mean, as fast as they came, they disappeared, because then they just went. And she went, they're gone.
Annette, at any time during that time, Annette, were you fearful? Was it a scary experience?
I didn't know what to think. I didn't have enough time to think. As soon as it started happening, I was in it. I wasn't fearful because I didn't, know exactly what I was speaking to then. She had said they're aliens, they're beings, but because I didn't see them, but I was getting these connecting messages, I didn't feel them at that point as aliens. They had to more or less tell me what they was, and that came a bit later on. At that point then, I was just running. I remember driving home thinking, I wasn't scared because I didn't know what I was speaking to. And it's not until I realised what I was speaking to, then I started to feel a bit. I would say there are a couple of conversations that I had that I can truly say I felt scared, didn't know really how to handle it. But apart from that, no, it wasn't scary. And plus Zoe and I had each other. And I think because we had each other, it made it even, we went into shock together. So we could talk to each other about it constantly. Even, I was telling everybody, my sister, I remember driving home from that night just being like, wow. But by the time I got home, I had already started getting text messages from Zoe, and they would say, she'd say, I remember the first one. I've got all the messages still on my old phone, and the first one would say, "Oh hi," and I knew it was Zoe because it would come up with her name above it, and say, "Oh hi," and she said, "The beings are still with me, and they've asked this," and I've wrote all their messages down because some of them were things like, "What do you think happens if humans can only love their own?" And lots of messages started coming through. And so that was when I went home. So by the time I got home, I must have had about 3 or 4 messages. I woke up the next day, I was getting messages. I was going around my day literally in a daze. I could phone Zoe, and we could be talking. It might be like, how are you? How are you doing? I might say, "Oh, have you seen the beings today?" Mm-hmm. And she'll say, "No, they haven't been around." Or she'd say, "Oh, they've just come," and they would come so she could see them, and then we'd have a 3-way conversation. It was really bizarre. And it went on for 3 months. So it was like that for 3 months. There were other things that happened within that 3 months.
Did you ever feel that your friend was going out of her mind? Did you just completely buy into it and hang on with her, or did you have a hard time dealing with the change that you saw in your friend?
I was changing with her at the same time.
There
was nothing. We were going through it exactly at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and where she was seeing them within they were with me. Even though I couldn't see them, and they made their presence clear in other ways until I understood that they were with me, and that I had decided because they said every human agrees to any contact before birth. Every soul, they used to call it energy. They would say, you humans. So they said that what happened to Zoe and I is how it should have happened and how we wanted it to happen. And that made sense to me, because if I had seen 3 alien beings standing in my living room, I think I would have dropped down dead. I am such a scaredy cat. But then we are very different personalities. She's a much more grounded. I'm a bit of a water sign, and I am really like, "Argh!" And I know I can be like that. And I've never liked watching horror films. I've never liked watching anything scary. I have, since the beings have come, and everything that has happened since that, because when they first came, it was like being in school for 3 months. And I couldn't understand why they kept, they would repeat things. They always talk about death. They wanted to keep going on. They spoke about death for a long time. And they kept saying, there's no such thing as death. At one point, they even said to us, if you humans you are already dead, as if to say, get your head over it. There's no difference. It's a personal perception. They said, what else? There's little key points that they said. There's lots of, there was 3 months of conversations, and every time I had a conversation or an experience, I wrote it down, wrote the time down, if it was with me or Zoe or some other, because what happened after about 3 weeks of them being here, constantly talking to us, and I was telling my sister, I was telling everybody, a couple of people started saying, quite interested in these beings. Would they talk to anybody else? So I said, well, I can ask. And I said to Zoe, ask them if they fancy doing some sort of gatherings. If we get a few people round, maybe they'll, would they come? because they wouldn't come when we would want them to come. They would show when they showed, and at first they would only ever show to Zoe when she was on her own, or she said after a couple of weeks the cats could see them, but her husband wasn't paying much attention, and she's a foster mum, so she had foster children, so she was only seeing them on her own. But I felt them. I felt an energy that I cannot describe. About 2 weeks after the first contact, I think it was, we'd opened up a page as well. We'd opened up a Facebook page because the messages were coming so fast, thick and thin. I kept saying, oh, we must tell people about these. We've got to tell people. We can't keep it to ourselves. There's too many things like they're sharing with us. And I said, I don't know what to do. Let's just open a Facebook page up and we'll put some of their messages up, and I'll tell a few friends, and if they're interested, then they can have a look. And so that's what we did. And I remember Zoe getting a bit panicky about that, because I remember her saying to me, well, what if people, ask questions? And she said, I'm not, giving me the answers. They're only going to get the answers if the beings choose to come and join in. So, but anyway, they did. They came, and she asked them, and they said, "Don't worry. Yes, we will. We're quite. This is the way it's going, and this is fine. We'll just do this." And that's what they did. So they put a few messages up on there about rainwater, because they said that rainwater was the best things for humans to drink, and that we have been told not to. That's all they said. I did ask them. I did say, "What about pollution and everything?" And they just said, "No, you forget that. Rainwater is the best." They used to call themselves Tron, because we used to call them we kept calling them the three beings. And then one day we had this whole conversation about carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And they said, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen are the building blocks for everything, all beings, all planets, all, plants, stones, fossils. They would always say that to us. And in fact, they'd always say it with humans being at the end. It used to, after a while, I used to think that was quite funny. They'd say plants, fossils, dinosaurs, animals, humans, other beings, planets. They are all one energy, and it's all a personal perception of the same of each one of our realities. But anyway, so they said, call us Tron. That's spelled CHON after the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. So after a while of having conversations with them, they would call themselves Tron. And so when we did the Facebook page, some of the messages were, say, from the beings, but some of the messages within what the beings had said would say things like, they would mention themselves. They wouldn't call themselves the aliens or the three beings. They called themselves Tron, and they'd say, Tron will show humans X, Y, and Z. Or, so that was pretty cool. We had lots of conversations about things that I'd never heard of before. I've got the beings' messages. I don't know if you wanted them to read the actual messages, because I'm dyslexic. I can't really read out loud. Although I wrote it all, I can't read it back out loud.
Yeah, we can post some of those later on Facebook too, and people can read them if you don't mind.
No. Well, I was going to get my sister. My sister's here, and I was going to ask her to read a couple out if you want. If
Sure.
you want to post them, that's fine.
Yeah, we can do either and or. Yeah,
right,
we're open to all that.
Right, sorry, Kate. Here she comes, bless her. Right, because this message it's just, I want to let you know, like, the depths of what we were talking about, because I don't talk like this normally. I'm dyslexic. I have not even read a book. I've read like short paragraphs, and so anyway. So when they were giving me this information and I was writing it down, this is a couple of things that one of the things that they were talking about. Can you read that about the date? So it's the 2nd of the 1st, 18.
So your sister, what's her name?
My sister's just going to sit in the seat, so you should have no change. She actually sounds like my voice as well. So she's just going to read you. This is a message that was sent to me on the 2nd of January 2018. So it's just after Christmas, by the beings. Okay, hi. It says, water is made up of oxygen and hydrogen atoms,
Proteins are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and other elements. So we know that the molecules that make up the cells of the body are made of atoms. In the end, it is the correct way to say the body is made up of cells. Everything has a purpose. When we move to humans, understand this separation, we'll go to sleep, and when oneness will wake up.
Yeah, sorry, it's hard to read, isn't it? That's a paragraph. That was a conversation that we had about atoms and oxygen and hydrogen, and that conversation then led on to the conversation about hydrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and the fact that they said call themselves Tron. So that was one of them.
And your sister's name is Kate?
Yeah, my sister's Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Yeah. She texted me every day after her when she was going through this. And it was honestly like she was speaking in tongues. She would use words that she would never ordinarily use in her everyday language and just speak this sort of gobbledygook to me that she'd been...
What was this? I didn't know what they were...
Let's call it, that she'd learned that day. It was very, very strange 3 months, I have to say.
Yeah, my sister lives about 10 minutes away from me, so every time I'd leave Zoe, I would shoot round my sister's house, because I was repeatedly in shock. I can't even describe. I mean, I was literally going around the going, I've spoken to aliens and this is what they're saying and and they've told us about this. They told us about self-healing. There's lots of things they spoke about. They spoke about self-healing. They spoke about mental health. They said that there is multiple dimensions, like pockets, that they haven't gone anywhere. They're still there. They said the only thing that travels is the energy in the conscious. And they said, so I remember having a conversation with them about Atlantis. And they said, if you want to go to Atlantis, for example, you can go because it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there. You just can't see it in your current now. And the only truth is what you see with your first eye. They used to say they never used to use the word third eye. They said first eye, and I didn't ask them what they meant, but I understood what they meant because by the end of the 3 months, it felt what they were trying to get across was that it almost felt like they see everything through us because they knew exactly what was going to happen to me before it happened. I had about 2 weeks after they first showed up, I remember waking up one morning, coming downstairs and having a cup of tea, and I felt it was really painful on my shoulder, and I remember thinking, I don't know what that is, and I moved it, and it felt like there was a bit, my t-shirt had stuck onto something. So anyway, I went upstairs to the bathroom, and I was looking in the mirror. I couldn't reach it, so I had to sort of take a photograph from there just to see what it was, and there was a really round, perfectly round red, because it was bright red and it was sore and it was slightly raised, like mark on my shoulder blade, and it was pulsating. It was so painful. It was literally pulsating. I was asking everybody. I was asking all my friends every time. For a good week, I was asking my mum. I said, "Mum, what do you think this is?" And she said, "Oh, maybe it's a bite, and you scratched the scab off." And I said, "Mum, I can't reach it. There's no scratch marks on me. I don't know what it is." But in mind, I knew that it was something to do with the aliens. And because I was almost going to make a doctor's appointment about it. And I remember literally ringing up and making the appointment, then thinking in my mind, you know what it is. You know what this is. What are you going to say to the doctor? Are you going to say, I think I've got an implant in my shoulder? What are you going to say? So I just left it alone. And what I realized is that that was sort of like a sign for me to make sure that I was aware of what I was going through, and it was very real in this now, because that was associated. I still feel it now, still vibrates now, but very, very faintly. And it always used to be slightly connected to my emotions. If I was really at that time when the beings were around, I just felt like every day I was just shaking. I was just constantly shaking. I felt like I had this amount of energies just driving through me. It was like constantly going through me. And I felt that it seemed that every time the beings or I were talking about them, this thing on my arm would start to vibrate. And during that time, one of the conversations I remember having with the beings, they said to me, never fear the outside world of you. And I remember thinking, I know you watch me and I know that you are with me. And another thing I did was I'd put up a message on Facebook sort of saying, to all my friends saying, I know this is, this page might seem a bit, surreal, and I can assure you that I haven't lost my marbles and I'm quite sane, and this is definitely happening all in the now, and it's, wonderful. And I haven't been beamed up yet. I made a funny sort of comment at the end, made it very light-hearted. And I remember Zoe phoning me up in the evening, and she said, I've taken that last message down that you put up on the Being, because we used to call it the Being's Facebook page. She said, on the Being's Facebook page. And I went, okay. And she went, because they told me to tell you that do not be ashamed of what you are experiencing with them in the now. And that they've come to many, I remember this message off by heart, because it just literally felt like somebody had burnt it into my soul, because it touched me. They said, they've come in many forms to many different people to remind them what they forget. And in your illusion here on Earth, you chose to see them as three beings. And then it goes on to say, we are Tron, and we are everything, and you humans, you are everything as well, and blah, 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 blah. So that was pretty cool. And then I had three very surreal dreams, very, very surreal dreams, where I woke up and was violently sick because I felt like I'd been put in my body too quickly. And they were one was, the last one I can remember was something to do with height, because I can remember going in my dream into a lift, and then the lift had no floor to it, I realised. And then these doors ping open and I can see out of the lift, because it's all transparent, and I can see these little, what I thought to be, they were just little beings or little humans. I didn't know, in my dream, I didn't know what they were. They were just little. And they were beckoning me to come out of this lift and to come and have a look. Come and have a look. They were going, come and have a look. And I could just see in the background the top of this black building. It was jet black and some clouds. And I remember just standing against the side of this lift, and I kept repeating, I don't like it, 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 I don't like it. And the next minute I was on the ground, because I remember these doors opening, and it was like a ping, escalator doors opening of the lift, stepping out and thinking, oh, thank goodness I'm on the ground, I'm on the ground. I woke up, and then I didn't even make the bathroom. I was so sick. It was like coming down in an airplane so fast when you're sick is in your head, not in your tummy. Your head feels unbalanced. That was very cool. There was another night where I remember I was finding it really hard. This is all during the time of the 3 months, the intenseness of the 3 months, where I was finding it really hard to sleep. And I was just going to sleep when I heard a female voice, and it wasn't my voice, and it said, sleep. And it woke me up, literally woke me up. And I remember thinking, well, that's not my voice. I know that's not my voice. And then this feeling, I've had a few operations in the past, and I know when they sort of count you under, you have this feeling of going to sleep where you go sort of from your feet upwards, and that's how it felt. I could feel the feeling like of a heaviness coming from my feet upwards. But because by the time it got up, because it was slowly coming up my body, I had no fear. But by the time it got to my waist, I remember thinking, well, I know this feeling because I've had operations, and I know this is a feeling of relaxing, and you're putting me to sleep, and I'm going to go to sleep now. But I know that wasn't my voice. And then again, I went straight to sleep, don't remember anything apart from waking up in the morning, being very ill again. So there was a lot of things like that going on, as well as all the messages that were happening over that 3 month period. So there was a lot of stuff going on during that time. And as I say, Zoe and I were experiencing them completely different. She was doing astro traveling with them. She was doing a lot of out of body experiences. They spoke a lot about a load of different things. The most out of all of it, I would say they spoke a lot about death. because they kept saying, they never used the word death, actually. They never, ever used that word. They always used to say release. They said things like everything's done in cycles. They've been here for billions and billions of years and as I said, done it loads of different forms. So, angels, entities, aliens, it's all one source and it will all produce the same, different people. I remember we had a gathering once and one of my friends there, we asked, is there anybody who have any questions for the beings? And one of them said, yes, I have a question. Is the world round is Earth round or flat? And I remember thinking, that's a good question. I didn't ask that question myself. I thought, yes, let's see what the hell they say. And they said, the Earth has no shape. If you look up, it will keep going. If you look down, it will keep going. That's all they said. And then I started laughing and I said, I understand that. And Michael, the other guy, said, yes, I understand that. And then Zoe said they were laughing at us. They used to laugh at us. They laughed at us. They would scream. One night when I got scared, because you asked me if I'd ever got scared, and I was the only time, I think there was no time for being scared because it was such a fast pace. I'd wake up to messages. I'd go, through the day to messages. I'd go to sleep talking to them. I could ring up Zoe. They'd be on. It became quite normal to me, and it was really it was so interesting because I thought, I remember thinking, what can I ask them? Because they said, well, why didn't you ask this and why didn't you ask that? But I don't know why I didn't ask them certain questions and why I did ask them certain questions. But I know they led most of the conversations. So, and when the penny really dawned on me that I was speaking to aliens, I did get a little bit nervous then. It was weird because for the first probably month, I was skipping whoa, this is brilliant. I'm getting talking to these beings and it's wonderful. But then something clicked and I remember thinking, these are aliens. I'm speaking to aliens. I'm actually speaking to aliens. And it was the shock didn't go for about 2 years. But even now when I say it sounds foreign saying it, but during the time, I didn't have time to ask so many things. I asked them things that me and my dad, because my dad had passed 2 years prior to that, and our dad. And our dad he used to work for NASA. He was an engineer, so he put the satellites that took all the photographs that came down onto our BBC televisions back in the sort of 80s. So as children, we used to go to Florida every year, which was really nice, and see the shuttle launches. So my dad was always into bits and bobs, and I remember he was really into the Anunnaki, and he got me reading about the Anunnaki and things like that absolutely years ago. So Annette,
let me ask you this: Did you have any other? If you didn't really know anything about ETs back then or had any experiences, did you ever have any paranormal experiences at all? Or did you believe in anything paranormal prior to your visits from these extraterrestrials?
I was so scared of the paranormal, I wouldn't have even gone near it touch with a barge pole. It scared the life out of me. Something about it just scared me. So no I didn't know. But after the beings came and spoke to me, now I know they've been with me all my life. Because they showed me in thought times during my life that they were there. And I remember thinking, so I remember having that thought. And I remember you, because they say they actually said that they speak to all humans in thought. All humans.
So if we follow this paradigm where energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it just transfers into some other form, is there a relationship between what we would consider ghosts or spirits and a relationship between extraterrestrials?
Yeah, because they said it's like this. They said that energy chooses its own contract and what it wants to experience on Earth. As in, they said energy, it's the emotion. It's the emotion that you experience that's why you have Earth. And they said it's a creation that humans and beings, other beings, which they said there are many, all wrote the creation of Earth. That's what they said. They said it's energy that created Earth, and it's a conscious energy that created Earth, and we all wrote this story. They said it's a never-ending story, and you wrote it. And they always used to say humans and other beings. So when it comes to spirits and ghosts, I literally now, if anybody I know, because I've never knocked it before, but I never experienced it. But I'd been to people who had my tea leaves read and things like that. But, I was as a person myself, I used to say, so I'm quite intuitive, and a lot of what they say to me, I pick up on other people anyway. But they mostly said that if someone sees what they represent as a ghost or how they perceive it, it's the same energy as aliens. It's just coming to them in a different form, because that's what their energy, their soul, their human form wants to experience here on Earth. It's like a theme park. It's, good rides, bad rides, scary rides, and then on to more. And it's multi-dimensional. It's not just what we see, because they said, they said when they said déjà vu, for instance, they said is the past, the present, and the future all rolled into one, and we only view it as a feeling of that. But they said all humans are multi-dimensional energies, if you like, and we're all connected. Everything's connected. So I can only roll back onto that, to the fact that what they said, they'd come in many forms. So yes to that, I'd have to say. You
sent me some talking points and some things that you had actually experienced and had conversations about, apparently. And one of these things that really intrigues me and one of the things that I think about a lot is the lack of a fossil record for humans. And it looks like, on planet Earth, that humans have only been here kind of a glint in time when you compare things geologically. You wrote down something about stone fossils and dinosaurs. What's that about?
Yeah. Because when the beings used to speak about how the cycle is and how it was, they would always say that everything's one. And so what I got from that is that this is going to where it goes a bit deep now. The other thing they said is there's no truth. There's only what you see with your first eye. So basically, they're saying that our reality is our own reality. We're going, like, I've got my own reality, my sister's got her own reality, but we're crossing over in our realities. But nothing's real. That's what they kept saying. It's an illusion. They kept going on the fact that it's an illusion. It's an illusion. You're just here to experience emotion. Don't get too stressed about it. Enjoy it, and then you go on to so much more. Sorry, I think I've gone off your subject there. What did you just ask me again?
Well, we were talking about fossil records and dinosaurs.
The fossils and the dinosaurs, yes, because they kept speaking about them. And I remember them saying about, right, so it kind of ties in with, they said nothing's real. So effectively, at some point in some dimension, those dinosaurs haven't gone anywhere. They're still there. And when I hear about, we hear about, like you said, the lost civilizations, that someone might find it, because if someone's going to find, this is what they were saying, they said as much as they spoke about planets, they are, in the other breath, they said the planets may look a certain shape, but they are just energy. You perceive them as that shape. And everything works together for this cycle and this story, and it's all perceived, and there is nothing real. It's just energy sailing around different dimensions that you see as this and you perceive as that. So when I hear that, and I know that, and then you say to me, oh, right, well, are we going to find any prehistoric, skeletons or this or that? Quite possibly, because if someone's going to find it in their contract, they're going to find it, and we will buy into it. So there's no truth. So everything we have, even what I'm speaking to you now about, this has happened in my reality, and it's very truthful and happened in my reality. But if people get that or not, if it's not included into their reality, then it's just going to pass them by. So with dinosaurs, because it goes back to the fact when they said if you look up, it will keep going. If you look down, it will keep going. So in what point it's like quantum. It's quantum physics. It really is quantum. It's quantum. Each person has their own quantum to them of dimensions where they can go. So it's the same if I said if someone's meant to look, we've got this ever expanding universe, which obviously I don't know the ins and outs of that. I'm just picking up what I'm hearing. But I agree with that now because of what I had my alien experience, and what the being said is there's no planet. It's an illusion. But if someone's meant to find a planet in his contract, in his reality, he'll find it. And then if we all buy into that, that's our business. And it's the same with dinosaurs and relics. But they said, if you find a stone and you show it love, they just said, see what it does back to you, which gave me, as it went through, and I went through the motions of the messages and rereading the messages, because they left at the end of January, and up till the end of January, it was every day. There was messages, conversations, every single day. I had no time really to stop and take it in. And then they left just like that. And they said that their energy was leaving. I remember phoning Zoe and saying, I kept asking them why they were here, how long they were going to stay. And they never answered me, and they never answered Zoe. And I knew from the start, as soon as they got here, they weren't staying around forever. And I said, they're not staying around forever. And I feel it. I just know they're not. It's going to be for a short period of time, and then they're going to go. And then they left at the end of January saying they were going to go and visit other humans, because we were going to have this conscious shift coming, and that all other beings want this change in reality, not just humans. And they said that in 3 generations, there's going to be a choice coming to humans, something we don't have now. They said a time of sharing love. That's when they started using the word oxytocin, which I had to go and look it up. And the oxytocin is the love hormone. So there's like super beings, if you like, being born, upgrades, where they're there's so much to it. There's oxytocin hormone, which they said that's what the future cycle is going to be. They're going to have that hormone in growth. So more humans are going to have this hormone going on in them, and that's going to bring in this new cycle of reality that they said's coming. And then they also sort of said that once humans have got to that point, then they're going to show themselves again. And they said they've done it in the past, and we go enlightenment, then we go down in the dark ages, then we come back in enlightenment, and we go down. He said it's cycles. It's like a huge story, like a movie that we're all taking part in. It's deep. Yeah, it's on lots of different levels.
You also have something that you've written down. It says 369. What's that?
Oh, yeah. So when I said to you that I was going to ask them some questions, when I realised, I thought, I'm going to ask them some questions. I remember one night I was on the phone to them. So I was on the phone to Zoe, so we were having a 3-way conversation. I said, I've got a question for the beings. And she went, yeah. And I just said it. I don't have to repeat it. I say it on the phone, and then they respond. I said, here on Earth, I said, Nikola Tesla, he used to talk about these numbers 369. Is there anything to 369? And they said, yes, in your human's illusion here on Earth, 369 are universal power numbers. That's all they said on that. So I thought, that's quite interesting. And since they said that, I see it everywhere now. Oh, it's the third today. Yeah, my sister just said it's the third today. Yeah, yes, it is the third today. Yeah, I see. And if I'm watching anything on television, any documentaries, I still like watching history, even though I know there was no history and it was just a consciousness at that period. I still enjoy it, but every time I see something now and it's got any significant dates on it, it's always got 369 in it. I see it everywhere now. It's just everywhere. Second World War was finished on I think it's 996, and something else was started on a 669, and it's everywhere. And that I always laugh when I see that now. And the other question I was going to get round to, but I must have sidetracked, is the night when I asked them about the Anunnaki, because I thought I'm going to ask them about the Anunnaki. I got very brave, and I said, so I have a question. Are the Anunnaki coming back? That's the question I asked them, because that's what me and my dad used to discuss 5 years, whatever ago. And they said, do you want them to? That's when I freaked out. That's when I got scared. I thought, I'm not answering. I literally didn't answer them. I thought, I'm not even answering that. I'm not answering that. And then they sort of came straight afterwards and said they can't come back because energy always changes form. They've came, and I've got the words exactly, but it's more or less, they came to Earth and experienced it, but left not having the same attachments to Earth as humans. That's what they said. They're not coming back. They changed form. So what I understood from that later on, because they kept going on about this energy is always changing form, it's always moving, it's always changing form, nothing stays the same. And every moment, every now is the only truth, and what's gone is gone, and what's to come is to come, and that's multidimensional. Is that, yeah, that the now, really, that's all they kept going on about, is everything's in the now, it's all now. So yeah, the Anunnaki conversation was pretty cool. I mean, that's all they said. I remember one particular day when I realised that they actually know what's going to happen to us before it happens. Because this particular morning, I've got a daughter who's 26 and she's got 2 children. She's quite young with 2 kids. And she doesn't live with me. And anyway, this particular morning, it was about 7:30 in the morning, during the time the beings were here as well. And my messenger went off, and I've looked at it, and I had what was obviously 3 or 4 messages from Zoe must have been sent to me at the middle of the night, which started with from the beings, and then a message from my daughter saying that bailiffs were up at her door, and he was knocking down the house, and the kids were screaming, and it was chaos. And I looked at my phone, and I remember thinking, right, okay, I'm going to deal with my daughter. I'm not going to listen to I'm not going to open any of the messages from Zoe, because it's going to be messages from the beings, and I haven't got time to speak to them right now. And I remember literally thinking that. I haven't got time to have a conversation right now. I've got to deal with my daughter. So I got dressed, straight round there, trying to sort it out. It was so stressful. It was just a very stressful morning. And anyway, got to about, I don't know, maybe 1, 2 o'clock. And I thought, I just had a really down day, because I remember thinking, I'm having this really stressful time with my daughter. The beings have told me that we all choose our contracts before we get here. And I've had what a shitty contract. I'm sorry, I shouldn't swear, sorry. What a really bad contract I've had. I've had a lot of pain in my life. I've had operations. I've got a walking disability I've had since I was young. And I've had really bad boyfriends. I really was dwelling in my own, pity. And I remember driving back, and it was dark, and I was thinking, oh, what a shit life I've chosen. God, couldn't I've got a better one, and blah, blah, blah. Got back here, and I sat down and made myself a cup of tea, and I thought, right, I'm just going to clear my mind, and let's just see what these messages are talking about now from the beings. And they started off with, at something like 3:30 in the morning was the first one, saying, keep grounded today. Remember, this is all an illusion, just something your energy wanted to experience. And then the next one was, 3 or 4 messages saying the same thing about keep grounded. Remember, this is an illusion. This is something you wanted to experience. Remember, it's not real. About 3 or 4 messages. And I remember thinking, wow, you sent me those messages before. Now, if I'd looked at the messages before I'd got on with my day, I probably wouldn't have taken the day so stressfully, if you see what I mean. I might have been able to detach myself from it. But I didn't. I went full straight into it. Mum to the rescue, sort it all out and whatever. And only after did I read the messages and sat back and thought, so those messages were sent to me before my day started. So we always have, because they said we all have free will. They said, we tell you things. It's like a drip. We'll come to you, or we won't come to you. We'll speak to you, or you won't speak to you. You either hear us or you don't, or you hear us and you choose not to listen to us. And they said that's free will. And so on that particular occasion, it was shown to me, and I understood that, because they had been, it was in front of me. And I remember making the decision not to read what they had to say. I remember physically, in the physical, not in mind, actually on my phone, So, but that was that was another one where I thought, wow, they know what's going to happen to us before it happens to us. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And yeah, so that was another very, very surreal experience. Sorry, I do talk a lot.
So
I did say that.
the end of the world, is that going to really happen? Because, the universe is created and destroyed planets and stars, and they're telling you that the end of the world will never happen.
No, they actually said humans can't end the world. They don't have the power to.
But what about but can nature end the world?
Nature wouldn't want to. Nature is here for humans. They wouldn't. Nature is here for humans. It's part of the human experience. It would never. It wouldn't. Why would we create this illusion and then get rid of it? There's no point. The point of the illusion is for us. The whole point of the illusion of Earth is to experience energy in human form and experience this. They said you've been given everything. There's nothing you don't need. You've just forgotten. And they said that happens over a period of time. And what's going to happen is that you're all going to remember again. In the future, there's not going to be any money. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but it's what I don't know. Don't ask me how that's going to pan out, because there's not going to be, in that reality, which they said is going to come in, it's going to be a time of love and sharing. There's no point. They spoke about money, I think, on one of the, I'll have to find it. I think it's on one of the messages when they said that humans spend all their time, chasing after money, and they forget why they're here. Because they said to me, money is an illusion. They said it's all an illusion. You have no age. You have no age. There's no limitations. We put labels on ourselves. They spoke really well about mental health, which was quite good, because they said, we had a conversation about mental health, and they were describing how different brains, and they said all brains work differently, animals' brains work differently, consciousness, they all work differently, but they all work together, but differently. And who are humans to put labels like mental health, or because they spoke to us about dyslexia, because we asked them about dyslexia because we're both dyslexic. So, and the other, we asked them about dyslexia, and they said that how they described, let's say, bipolar to me was really interesting, because I've done some life coaching in my past, and 10 years or so ago, I used to do some charity work for Mind in the UK, which dealt with people that had really severe, we always called it depression, but we already knew it was bipolar, but that bipolar is a massive umbrella. So I dealt with people with sort of depression. So I had a friend that had suffered bipolar very severely since she was diagnosed at 16, but they didn't diagnose her with, they diagnosed her with schizophrenia at that age. And she's had a very rough time. However, when the beings came, we had a conversation about mental health, and they described it in a way that I understood it. And they said it's like, so with people with extreme mental health, which we would class it, the being said what that is that energy has come to this reality to experience it, but also remembers all its other realities in this now. Whereas we on the norm would only remember them in dreams, or, maybe a bit of deja vu or something like that, where we'll say, oh, I've done this before, or I've been here before. And those are the other dimensions. Whereas people with mental health, they're experiencing it all right now. So that's what it is. And they said, and who are you humans to say what that is and how how you are perceiving that? They said that humans have a lot of words to describe things they don't understand. That's what they used to say to us, which was like fair enough. Because the labels, they didn't understand why we put so much labels on things. Why do we, this person's that? And they said all you end up doing is just boxing yourself in. So that was quite an interesting conversation about mental health. And they said in the future, humans are going to evolve to self-heal, that humans can already self-heal. They mentioned the pineal gland, because they said that if you close your eyes and shut out the noise and travel into your pineal gland, that's where everything is, everybody is, that all consciousness is. and everybody can tap into that. There's no secret to it. Even down to the point where they were talking about meditation, because Zoe is very into meditation and I'm not into meditation. It's not my thing at all. I dabble with it a little bit, but I'm quite happy just to lay on the sofa and look out the window and watch nature and just clear my mind, and that's how I find it. And they were saying that there's no wrong or right. There's no set way to everything because everything's inside. So there's effectively everything outside is not real. It's just an illusion, and everything that we experience is all going in. It all comes from within. So that's why they said everybody can tap into that source. And they said in the future, because they sort of helped me self-heal with because I have back pains and everything. They haven't gone completely, but I can control the pain. And the way they showed me how to do that was to literally visualize like a dot going into my pineal gland, traveling down internally to wherever the pain is. Normally it's in my lower back, and rubbing the sort of area internally, visually, and it goes. And they said in the future more people will self-heal and they'll learn how to use nature more. They're going to connect with nature much more. They said stones and they actually spoke about fossils and stones a lot, saying that they just used to say they're all one. And I can only put that down to this multi-dimensional illusion that we're all in, that they had their time, and that time is still there, as I said, because they did constantly say that there is no such thing as, there's no past and no future. Even though when they were explaining things to us, they would use the terms. I remember they said this is a cycle. It's been going on for billions of years. Because I remember thinking, well, he said there's no such thing as time. But I thought, okay, I understand the concepts that you need to tell us about things. Yeah. So there's lots and lots of things going on. Yeah.
Interesting. And so lately, when was the last time you had contact, or when was the last time that you and your friend were able to speak with them or communicate?
I speak quite often still, which is quite funny, but not so much. It was literally a couple of weeks ago where, because we connect sleep is so important. Sleep is very, very important, and it's important because it's the time when we connect to multi dimensions in that time, and it's all so in the morning is when I'm most connected. Not always, but when I'm in the morning is when there's lots of things going on in my mind. And the other morning I remember waking up and it just got put in it sort of came into mind. Remember, humans have no age. And it was I sat back on the sofa and I thought, oh yeah, we don't have any age.
Yeah,
just another label on our slave. We don't have no age. We have no age. There's no age. We could celebrate the day that we popped into this illusion. They talked about the womb, actually, and the oneness of the atom with the womb. And then it's, once you popped out, you're taken on. They said the baby is conscious and is conscious from very off. And because they said sometimes an energy doesn't, sometimes a woman may lose a child. And they said, and that's nothing to do with the woman. That's just that the energy decided that it wanted to experience the oneness of the womb and the atom, and that's it. And then it went, and it might come back and it might not. And so that was quite, I understood that. I thought, okay, well, that makes sense as well. So in the future, because they did speak about this new time that's coming, and they said there's going to be a time where, so they basically said that humans are going to self-heal, there's going to be no money, and we're going to be sharing, but there's going to be a choice. They said it's a choice for humans, something you don't have now, a choice. And I didn't ask them what the choice was, because by that point, it was coming to the end of it, and I was under an immense energy, and it was just intense, and I wasn't asking so much questions. I was just repeatedly, they just kept repeating everything they'd said over and over and over again. So I remember once I'd got the ump a little bit with Zoe because I'd rang her up and I'd said, ask the beings this, and she said, the beings have said no. I said, no what? And she said, no, they said you ask and you will answer. And I said, well, what do they mean by that? And then she said, well, you think about it and the answer will come to you. And it's not until over time I kept going through the notes and I thought, I understand what they mean, and they talk through us. They talk constantly to us. And we're always at these crossroads. And what they're basically doing is telling us our contract here. It's like they're drip feeding you your contract to you and saying, well, you can do this, or this is coming up and you can go left or you can go right. Because they also said there's no right or wrong, there's no negative or positive energy. They said it's only personal perception of it. Because they kept saying, humans need to love negative as much as they love positive because it's the same. There is no difference. And they said there's no night, there's no day, there's no dark, there's no light. It's just perception of it. It's all one energy. And they said that's what's going to change in the times to come. The thought patterns are going to change, and that's with this shift. But that's because they're talking to all humans. And what I've come to discover, I just thought, all this spirituality that people are talking about in the past and science, it's all the same. It's all one thing. There's no division. That's what's going to come in the future. People will be self-healing. There'll be no need. There'll be no money. There'll be no banks. There'll be aliens at some point walking with us. And they said I would see the start. Well, they didn't say I'd see aliens walking with us, although they did say there's going to be more alien contact with humans, and that they're here to help humans. So they're going to be nice contracts. And they kind of touched on all that sort of bad contacts that we've had before. And they kind of explained it as a consciousness, as a oneness consciousness all round. We've all, throughout the last 10,000 years, wanted to experience this really male energy. I'm not being rude to you. I'm not saying I'm just saying, the masculine side of the yin and yang.
Sure.
Had a lot of fighting, there's lots of war, it's lots of all that sort of is changing, and it's going to come into more balance of this yin and yang, because they used to say yin and yang, dark, light, night, day, one can't be without the other. That's all they used to say all the time. It's one, and it's been separated and divided, and it's all going to come back together again. And that those past, I can't say that no one's going to have any horrible experiences, because people get scared, and I don't know, everybody's got their own contracts. But from what they were saying to us is that more or less it's like they want a new image, and they want an image of love and sharing, and that's all they've ever done. But it's been twisted and whatever through contracts and consciousness and everything else. So they're here now to clear the air and put it all right. So lots of more human alien contact come in. It's going to be full of messages and sharing and light. Well, we can't say light or dark because there's no difference. It's going to be, it's on track for where they want us to go to, basically.
So if we have us and them, what else is out there? I mean, what do we have any other organisms that are capable of contacting us?
Well, who knows? Because plants are alive. Plants have got their own stuff going on. And when I asked them about animals and things like that, they said to us, animals are always here to help humans. And then they talked about wild animals. They just said they're part of don't worry about them. They're doing their thing. They don't worry about you. You're just another one of. There's plants, there's animals, there's humans, there's other beings, there's planets. You're just one of them. There's no difference. They used to class us as no difference.
Interesting.
Yeah. I used to think that as well, because they would always put humans at the end as well. It made me laugh at the end, because I used to. By the end, they had a sense of humour though. They laughed. Like, so say they're really laughing at you, or they're laughing at what you've just asked them, and then they'd come back with something. There was a lot of two-way conversations going on. And that gave me a bit of comfort, because when they used to say they're laughing, I literally visualised three little beings just sitting there cracking up. So I used to have, maybe a slightly rose-petalled glasses on, but that's how they gave it to me.
Did this, when they told you that, pain and suffering is sort of relative, did it change your perception of your own pain and the way you perceive pain? What's it like now?
I tell myself it's not real, and send it love.
Does it help?
So yeah, it does.
How about the concept of religion? I mean, that's such an important thing to individuals here on Earth. What about God and Jesus and religion in general and other deities?
We had that conversation. I did ask them if they were God. We both did. We asked them together and separately. I asked them if they were God, and they said that there was no one divine being. There was only a collective, connected oneness, and everything's inside. And I thought, okay, cool. So, yeah. And I had a real problem calling them God, because at one point they said, if you like, we are oneness, and if you like, you are talking to the creators. So if you want to call us God, that's yours, but we call ourselves Tron. So we had that conversation, which was, I remember coming, that was one of the big shockers as well, because by that point, actually, we weren't that shocked. I wasn't that shocked, but I remember going around telling all my friends, saying, oh my gosh, now, there's no God. There's no God, by the way. It's oneness. There's just oneness, and we're all in it, and we're all together in it, and there's aliens, there's lots of beings, and they're like humans, and it's just part of the illusion, and oh gosh, yeah. So I'm not going to knock anybody that has any religion, because all the messages come from the same source, which is the beings. That's the only thing that I'll probably say that's not going to. I have friends that are very Christian, very, very, very Christian. And her husband, Danny, was quite interested, because I've done a couple of interviews, and he was interested to ask me, but there was a couple of conversations that I thought were quite funny, because I said to him, there's many dimensions all happening in the now, and it's all there. It's just that we see, like pyramids, we see them as pyramids now, but we don't really know what we're looking at. We just see it right as it is now. Is that our past or is that future? We don't know where it's at, because there's no time that's man-made. So you just got to look at it and see it where it is now. And I said, many dimensions. And he said, yes, because Jesus has, his father has many rooms in a house. And I said, well, it seems to be, it's just very similar. And I said to him, I don't believe there was any one Jesus. We actually asked them, they said, how do you humans know Jesus wasn't a woman? And I remember me and Zoe looking at each other, and we went, well, we don't, because they said, it's all in consciousness. There's no real. There's only what you see with your first eye. And if that person was going through that, then that was going through them in that first now. And that was quite an interesting conversation. So it put me on a track more of not so much a person as a consciousness and enlightenment. And I think through various what we would call history, we've had times of enlightenment, which is what they're doing now, which is where they affect all humans around. Well, there's no globe because there's no shape. But, all of us in our realities get touched or awoken. And it's all happened many times before. And it's happened from probably day dot, from the Egyptians going all the way through. There's been many cycles of this, and they come and they do what they do, and then they've never left. It's just constantly cycles of going round and round and round. So, yeah.
Amazing. So we're kind of at the end of our time, but at the end here, I just want to ask you this. So what is the most important part or concept that we should remember when thinking of our relationship with each other and visitors to this planet?
That we're here to be nice and have fun and enjoy yourself. Don't have any fears. There's no death. So don't be feared about death. Don't be scared about, and the beings just talk about getting old. They said, why do humans get so scared about getting old? Don't they know there's so much more to, more to this? It's just this, and then there's more. So I would actually say, enjoy your life and love, and just see the nature as it is, and everything in moderation. Be nice to each other. We're all connected. I am a bit of a hippie at heart, you can tell, because I was a bit like this beforehand, but now I'm OTT.
That's
so
amazing.
and don't take anything to heart, and that's the bottom line, really. Remember, it's just an illusion, so don't let that person annoy you. Just think, well, that's their thing, that's what they're doing. You do you, and I'll do me, and happy days. Because it's all in hand. Everything's in hand. You don't have to worry about anything. It's all in hand.
Good thoughts to remember from London, England. Annette Wiliamson has been my guest. Annette, it's been a great honor and a pleasure sharing your experiences. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for listening and having me on your show.
My Alien Life Podcast.
You can find my website at www.myalienlifepodcast.com, and please subscribe to my latest downloads at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and at podbean.com. And please follow me and like me on Facebook and Twitter. My Alien Life is written and produced for broadcast at Studio 254 in the Northern Rocky Mountains. The music you are hearing is produced and created by ELEON. You can find all ELEON's work online at Heart Dance Records.